Okay, so today I will talk about three main topics where, let us say, trains and deportation are, as we may say, after the extermination an sich, the deportation is the most important fact from which we have got to make a study, and also try to understand that the extermination couldn't be possible without deportation. So first of all, I'm working for the Auschwitz Foundation. So it's a study and documentation center. So for that we have got three pillars. So first of all, the scientific part, with certainly the international journal Getuigen, Témoigner. The last one just came out a couple of days ago, so it's a very good number. I wrote an article, so it must be very good. Secondly, the pedagogical pillar. So it has no use to have only scientific matter. We also have got to translate it and to present it to pupils, but also teachers. And third, last but not least, the artistic part. So now I will tell you more about, and that's also the introduction for my lecture now, the scientific part and the pedagogical. We have got two study trips now since 1980. We are making an annual study trip to Auschwitz. But of course in 2020-21 it wasn't possible due to a little virus, and this year it won't be possible due to a larger problem. Our second study trip is on the traces of the Shoah in Poland. That's why I want to introduce two projects, and also by those projects talk about the deportation and the lecture of today. So the most important thing to understand when we are making a study trip is that there was a deportation, meaning how to get from point A to point B. That's the most important part. For that, that's also the biggest question mark that we can introduce. So when we have got this symbol meaning for a ghetto, when we are talking about on the traces of the Shoah in Poland, it's meaning where the Jews were gathered, kept together. In the beginning, there was the idea from the 27th of September 1939. There was a Schnellbrief written by Heydrich with just one question. Can we make not a ghetto, but the Judenräte, so the Jewish councils? Of course, they had in the beginning other ideas, so that was done. But the deportation did not take place, so after almost a year, for example, Piotr Trybunalski, there was very fast ghetto, but for example, for the Ghetto of Warsaw, it was made a year later. So this is the most important thing to know. When in a village, when in a town, the Jews were gathered, then the biggest question raised how to get them from the ghetto to a gas chamber. Of course, as I said before, on the conference of Wannsee, it was mainly the question of Dr. Bula to start with the General Gouvernement. Okay. So the answer was very easy. Let us use the trains. And the trains, we have got to understand there were the rail tracks connecting since the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, the connection made by trains between major towns. And that was used by the Nazis. But in fact, we have got to understand that a killing center is going to use it. How? Well, just to make a connection of it, which ends immediately to a certain point. It will end at the killing center. And that's where I found this very interesting definition of a killing center. Located away from villages to avoid prying eyes. Killing centers are moreover railway terminals. And that's very interesting because it starts, for example, for our study trip to Auschwitz, we always come with our group here to Mechelen. And we are visiting the place from the deportation. 1-2 weeks later, we are standing in Auschwitz. And so we can take over the end of the story told here in Mechelen and pick it up again where they arrive. Because without this information, it's impossible to understand. So, as noticed, for example, for the case of Belgium, passengers' cars were used. But very fast, and mainly in the east, they will switch over to cattle cars. Yeah. Where you can see here, for example, for the extermination of Jews in Chełmno, not Nerem, we see that from passengers' cars going to the killing center, they are using cattle cars. Here you can see another picture, and with this one, the question that we may ask is, how many people? Well, on the 31st of August 1942, Wilhelm Cornides wrote the next thing when he was near Ravaruska. I walked near the train. It was made of 35 cattle cars and 1 passenger car. Each of these 35 cars contained at least 60 deportees. So, for those who love mathematics, it means that around 2,100 people were deported by such a convoy. Here you can see another picture, the deportation from Krakow. And of course, now we can see where they get in the cars. So now we can go on and look at the end. I'm taking the case study of Sobibor. So where you can see drawn by Ton Rosenboom. This is the killing center. And as you can see, it is not that big. Certainly when you compare it with big concentration camps. This is not a camp, this is a killing center. And I will explain why it is important to use the word center. But now let us focus. Everybody is always going or having interest in this part, yeah, where the gas chambers are. But don't forget, without deportation, a killing center cannot function. We are going to focus today on the railway ending, where the train came in, where it was over. Those people who arrived over there, an hour, 2 hours later, it was done. They were stripped, women's hair was cut, they were gassed, golden teeth were put out, and they were buried in the first place. So it's this ending, and as you can see, mainly important is first of all the use of the trailways which existed. And that's how a killing center, and we will see it when we will get into detail with Treblinka, it's only a connection. small connection made between something existing and the idea of extermination. Here you can see how it must be a convoy which arrived. Mainly this, as we are comparing it with the definition we just read, it is the end of the way it's done. So, and here you can see the picture taken in Sobibor. So it was actually the end. There was no way back. Only an empty train will get out of the killing center. But for us now, the most important part is to analyze those 3 killing centers. Auschwitz, I will take Auschwitz-Birkenau, I will take Treblinka and Belżec. Everybody is aware of this picture. Yeah? And mainly when we are thinking about the extermination, we always think about Arbeit macht frei. No, so it's mostly important to know that the extermination took place near the camp of Birkenau. I think this is very important. I followed the courses of Maxim Steinberg, late Maxim Steinberg, who said it was like a killing center attached to a concentration camp. And that's why it is important to make the separation of those 2, as I call it, worlds. So the idea of Auschwitz was a center point for the deportation of the Jews from Europe. As you can see, this part we will speak about later. This was the General Gouvernement. But for Auschwitz, it will take a bigger scale. Why? 4 elements are very important. First of all, in Schlesien, there was enough water. There's the Wisła and the Shoah, the 2 rivers. Water is needed. There was coal present, raw material. The only thing missing is forced labor. So the idea is get centered the deportations, and then we need to find a point where we can make the separation between forced labor and, let us say, those who will disappear immediately into the gas chamber. So this is the plan that we all know. When in 1942 the deportation took place to Auschwitz, you have got to understand that Birkenau had not already this size. Okay? I will show you later on. But what I want to show you here is between Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II, there was 2 major platforms used. Not really platforms, but the first one is the rail track going to Auschwitz I, Stammlager. And from 1942 there will be the use of the Alte Rampe, the Judenrampe. That's also where there will be the confrontation between the economic part and the ideological part, between the Verwaltungshauptamt and the Reichssicherheitshauptamt. Yeah, that's where it is very important. So the first, as I mentioned, it's called the railway from the Polacken. Yeah, so it is Auschwitz I, and here you can see just next to the camp, Stammlager, there is what you can see here, the Polacken. Yeah. But very fast it will be not big enough to use anymore for the big transportations. So after it, there will be the use of the so-called Alte Rampe, the Judenrampe. Here you can see how it was. So that's where the deportations came, and something very important was made there. It's called a selection. A selection is the procedure which is done and which will make go to one side, main part, the people to be killed, and second part, those who will be conserved and used, and they will have to, not to live, but to survive in a concentration camp. So the symbol, which we can see nowadays, is for that case very important. That's also why when we, during our study trip, are visiting Birkenau, Auschwitz II, we don't start in front of the camp. We start where, just as I told you, where we ended our story here. The other side, point B, is there. Now, this is the confrontation between memory and history. So again, I told you what we know nowadays is a big part of Bauabschnitt 2, and even Mexico with everything which is built after it. But in the beginning, March 1942, there was only Bauabschnitt 1. So, and with the Judenhampe, so it was the use of bunker 1 and bunker 2, the people who have to go and die, and those who are kept and will be used as forced labor were kept in the camp. But memory didn't retain this. After it, since May 1944, for Aktion Höss, the train was immediately led into the camp, and that's where the ID meant. And the ID, for somebody who's visiting Auschwitz, this is the only thing he will remember, as what that the trains came in. I think that's only two of the deportations from Belgium. So mainly the Jews who were deported from Belgium to Auschwitz never saw this. They came at the Judenhampe. Okay, I will be killed. So this is Birkenau. So how we can see it, these are the neue Rampe, die Bahnrampe. Also, pictures were made. Here you can see one facing the entrance and facing the end, where you can see Crematorium 2 und 3. Okay. And the separation made, so mainly for women, children, elderly, to their death. Okay, I will go a little bit faster. So now the importance for trains for Treblinka. So as you can see, Treblinka in this General Gouvernement was important to understand what is now what Roel Hilberg called in chapter 9 of his book, The Killing Centers. Here you see Treblinka, Warsaw and Białystok. So, and it is really in the center. It's not a word without meaning. No, it is a killing center. It's centering the killing of the Jews. Let us take now the case of the Ghetto of Warsaw. When the ID came for the deportation, started on the 23rd of July 1942 to Treblinka. On the northern part of the ghetto, what was used, it's the Umschlagplatz. The people had to go, and still intramuros, they need to gather. How many? Well, for Treblinka, it was daily 7,000 Jews. 3,500 in the morning, 3,500 in the afternoon. Not 6,999, not 7,001. It's 7,000 each day. You can see some gathering to the Umschlagplatz, where they were kept, and then getting on the train. with cattle cars going to Treblinka. But it's not only Treblinka, as you saw on the map. Many towns, villages deserved Treblinka with their Jews. So, important to know is what was existing is Warsaw Małkinia, so as we can see here, going further on to Białystok. The idea was, okay, there is a train station already at Treblinka, and what was first built was Treblinka 1. It was a labor camp. And only because it was that easy, between Treblinka station and Treblinka 1, there was what is called Treblinka 2. It's the killing center. Oh no. So here you can see an idea of Treblinka. Important to know is that since December 1942, Frank Stangl, so the commandant, built a train station. It's totally useless. No, it was very easy for them. Why? It gave the directions. There was a time schedule. There was everything. Everything for those who arrived to believe, okay, we are not going to die. We see that there is still something living here. There's something real. No, it's only to get those people calm. And as I told you, in 2 hours, everything was done. Here you can see again a railway stop, the ending. The old train station of Treblinka itself, and also the symbolism nowadays is very important. When you visit Treblinka, you can follow the track wheels, now with concrete blocks symbolized. You can go to Małkinia. And to end with Belżec. So here again you can see from very far away, and this is also important nowadays when we visit Auschwitz. We are going to Krakow, and in Krakow you can immediately visit the salt mines and you can visit Auschwitz, and the idea is that, okay, the Jews from Krakow were deported and killed in Auschwitz. No, Krakow was the capital of this general gouvernement, and even from Krakow the deportations and murders took place in Belgium. So again, important was the existing connection between Lviv, Lvov, Lemberg and Lublin, yeah, with Zamość. And here important Rawaruska. It's the last point, which is now in Ukraine, going to Belgium. I will take now the case study of Lublin. On March 15th, 1942, the Jews were gathered. 2 days later, they were deported to Belgium. Here you can see where it was located, where it is now, and the new memorial. Because very important, during our study trip, we need to start the story where they left, and after it going to where it ended. The old train station, which was destroyed in July 44, and the new one, which is not on the same spot anymore. Once the train arrived, there it is important to notice that it was another officer, a police officer, who took over. Because a killing center, it's maybe the biggest secret they need to keep till the end. So once the train is arriving at the train station of Belgium, there it was took over by Rudolf Göckel. Yeah, but it was... And here again, so a very important map to see. Here the train arrived, and after it, here this was the killing center. So there was a little flip over into the center. This is the first stage of Belżec. There was only place for 10 wagons. So they only worked till the end of the day. They weren't working during night. So when they couldn't handle all the victims arrived at the station, they need to wait over there till the next day. This is a picture made, a painting painted by Kolodziejczyk. And for this, it's very important to notice, you see, when everybody is arriving, there was a speech. And I would like you to read you very fastly this speech. It was written by Rudolf Göckel. You need to know Belżec had between 550,000 and 600,000 Jews murdered. Only 6 people could escape. From those 6, only 2 testimonies existing. Chaim Hirtzman and Rudolf Göckel. So 2 out of those 600,000. He's writing this concerning the arrival, so this idea. At this precise moment, the SS took over the train. A big amount opened the doors and shouted, "Los, los!" They get the people out of the train by using whips. The unload platform stood 1 meter lower, so people had to jump. All of them, the sick, elderly people and children. Some broke their legs. The SS under a Zugführer watched over the dead commando, so those Jewish workers, Jewish prisoners dressed normally. They resembled to hear the speech of Ehrmann. A dead silence. Everyone wants to hear. Hope is coming back during the speech. They weren't to be killed. Ehrmann said very clearly, "You will get showered and then sent to work. That's all. Everybody is happy." They sang and danced. But of course, so after a couple of days of deportation, that was the speech they wanted to hear. But that was not what happened mainly. So the second stage, a big transformation was the unload platform from 10 to 20 wagons, and it was doubled. So there was place for around 40 wagons each time they need to get over and get retreated. At the end, 12 December 1942, Belżec closed its doors. Till June, till the summer of 1943, there were still Jewish workers who had to incinerate the bodies. And at the end, by those same railway, they were sent to Sobibor. Thank you.